So I want to take a couple of minutes to talk about those, but first I want to let you in and hear about comments you have, or experiences that you had that you'd like to share, or questions that you'd like to have, or really I'd love just for you to challenge me and say, Jared, I think you're really out in left field on that one. So who wants to jump in first? Let's talk for just a minute. I'll get a drink and I'll listen to you.
Jared, your roles sound really cool on the tape. My roles don't sound very cool.
Oh, interesting.
Is it important to get to that level of description? Or
Interesting. What I found, Kathy, when I started defining my roles was that I defined my jobs. I defined responsibilities. And jobs and responsibilities neither sound very interesting to me. And I really had to think behind the job, who do I bring to this job that really expresses who I am? This is where strengths comes in and is helpful. A little bit later when we unpack, we'll actually get to a place where I list my top 4 out of the 5 strengths that came out of StrengthsFinder. But I actually think about strengths in each of these. You know, who am I in terms of strengths, and how does it affect this role, and what really is the essence of that? So my hope for each of you is that you end up with cool sounding roles that really are personal and reflect who you are. One of the things that this can create for you is that third part of the paradox that I mentioned that has to do with healthy and sustainable life. I used to hear that we should be balanced. Any of you heard that? Yeah, balanced life. And I won't ask you how many of you aspire to that, because that would be an unfair setup. It would be disrespectful, because I'm here to tell you that I don't believe in balance. It's not one of my goals or aspirations, and I think that it's a ridiculous idea. Now, I'm nice to people when they tell me about balance in their life, because I'm not there to, argue about it. But this was my experience with balance. First of all, it didn't sound interesting to me. What entrepreneur wants to be balanced? I mean, isn't that what ordinary people do? Aren't we different than that? Don't we just kind of spurt here and spurt there? And a spurt, by definition, in one direction leaves other things unattended to. That, by a sense, is imbalanced. I actually positively emote around the idea of having an imbalanced life. So I tried to subscribe to the mold of your life should be balanced, and it didn't feel very good, but it sounded mature at the time. And so I tried to make it work. My second discovery was that I don't philosophically believe in balance. I just don't believe in it. And the third thing was it didn't work. So I'm pragmatic as well. I wasn't living a balanced life, and I didn't know anyone else that did either. So I understand what people are talking about, I think, when they talk about balance. But I call it harmony, and that makes a lot more sense to me. If the orchestra, isn't this fun, this little backstory that's going on in the DVD with the trombone player? An orchestra, by definition, if it were balanced, would be monotone, right? They all be playing the same sound at the same time for the same duration of time at the same volume intensity, and it would be a very boring orchestra. But what makes a work of Beethoven absolutely spectacular and evokes emotion and raises goosebumps is that it is harmonious, but absolutely not balanced. Some instruments don't even play some of the time, and other times they become the solo piece. There is a crescendo of great volume. There's the very quiet piece of the movement. There's rests where nothing is happening. Things build and then they come back. And it's this beautiful, designed, gorgeous, artistic, crafted, mathematical architecture of the music that makes this orchestra harmonious and beautiful. So I want to live a harmonious life, and that's where I find the answer to the paradox. A life that's defined well enough to say, I need to have the opportunity for spontaneity and freedom and flexibility and fluidity. That's how God designed me, and it's how I like to live life. I need margins and to be able to get a a message on Facebook a few days ago from Sherry, and to be able to meet today. I need to have that kind of space in my life. I need to make sense out of a life with some very deep commitments to God and some other people. And to do that in a context where life is healthy and sustainable as well. And that sounds to me like a harmonious life. Now, I tried to be persuasive and talk you into that. So how did I do? How did I do? And
really well.
Anybody here want to do the balance thing? And yeah. Talk to me a little bit about the idea of balance and harmony. And as I was talking, your own thinking about that and how that works or doesn't work for you.
Can I backtrack for a second?
Please.
When you said time management, you're a recovering time management junkie. I think it was Brian Tracy maybe that I've heard it from, who says there's no such thing as time management, which would be connected with there's no such thing as balance. He said it's all about self-management. If we can manage ourselves, then what we want to have happen in our life will be created and manifest. What do you think about that?
What do you think about that?
That's a very insightful observation.
Yeah. Like that.
I think they're cousins of each other as well. There's some semantics with the language and words that's being used.
Excellent. Good.
And maybe there's steps in that, or maybe time management may be the first step, and then after you are able to work with that for a while, then going in deeper to the self-management.
Excellent. Good. Thank you. Ty Brown. Hi. Did I hear Gabe?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think there's a similar problem with self-management in the context that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because what you're addressing is the discovery of our roles and our positions. And you can't manage yourself, just like you can't really manage time effectively if you're still trying to figure out what those things are. So I agree with the self-management portion. You are managing yourself more in time, but if you don't know what you're actually managing with yourself, you haven't identified those strengths and what's important, you're still going to have struggles in actually accomplishing that self-management.
Excellent.
So Jared, I got a question about the roles.
Chris.
You said you might have like 100, 200, 500. You have to whittle them down to 7, which is not fun. What about interchangeability within the roles? Have you ever found, like, let's say I become a father, whereas before father would not be a specific role that I would identify, but now I am. Have you ever found your list to be interchangeable?
By that, Chris, do you mean that that I might swap a role out for a while and bring another role in?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. What I have done is I have restated roles, but I think that in my own experience I've tended to have the same identity that I was just wanting to express in a different and fresh way, given that my life has matured in some ways or changed in some ways. But I think for me, I've generally found that once I got to the roles, that it pretty much was an expression of who I am and what's important to me. What you will notice on the Family Guide, which is the second one, is that in the last 7.5 months, I had to add another one there because I have a new identity. Because there's this wonderful little Katie Ann person in my life, this granddaughter, and so now I've got this grandpa role. So I have added a person, but it still comes out of the general role as Family Guy in that case. Yeah. So.
Balance one for you. When it comes to balanced life or whatnot, I find that especially if I try to have balance, especially as an entrepreneur, I never complete anything. And so I was wondering if you see balance entrepreneurially as the enemy of completion.
Interesting idea. Let's think about that. If you live a balanced life as an entrepreneur, your experience is you rarely finish things.
Yeah.
And maybe those two are enemies, or they're in such conflict with each other that they're impossible to reconcile. Yeah.
I don't know what you're
Your name again?
I'm Molly.
Molly.
I don't know what you're talking about when you're saying balance. Are you meaning like the exact same amount of time to each? Is that what you mean by balance?
Well, I don't think that I ever, Molly, believed that it would be the same amount of time and the same priority. But it seemed to be static and rather fixed. And it seemed to me that life just is messy and chaotic at times, and that's how life actually tends to happen. And to have a way of viewing life that actually anticipates that, so that health is sustained in the middle of all that chaos, that looks more like harmony to me than this idea of the fixedness of balance. So, yeah.
Are you talking about?
And your name again?
Melissa.
Melissa.
Yes. Like, I feel like, as Aaron's saying about
Mhm.
being an enemy, I think it implies that having a balance, it implies not taking risks, which is what being an entrepreneur
Yeah.
is. Like, that's like my perception, is that what, like, not being able to take risks, because as an entrepreneur, you have to take risks. There's certain things that you have to go into that risk-driven, you know, so it's a higher risk
Yeah.
to be an entrepreneur.
Interesting. Interesting. For me, the idea of balance, if you think about it in terms of physical terms, there's a fulcrum, and there's something that's going to be tipping on that. And the idea there, if you use that imagery, and I think, Molly, in my own thinking, that there is an equality about it that I don't find in life. Equal value, equal time, equal resource, equal attention. If something's going to be in balance, it means that it's going to have that equality so that it doesn't tip on one side of the fulcrum or the other. And to me, I just don't experience life that has that kind of neatness to it. So then I had to come up with an idea about, well, how can life be lived in a healthy, sustainable way that actually accomplishes the kinds of things that I believe God's called me to accomplish if I'm not going to have this sense of orderliness about it. And that's my way of expressing that is what you find here. So let's go ahead and take a look at it for a minute. I start out with good God. This is the good life. Everything's good God. By the way, what usually comes to mind when you hear about the good life? Just throw out some adjectives or some phrases. I'm sorry? Oh, yeah. Thank you, Ty. Yeah. The good life. What are the connotations? Yeah. Smiling.
Yeah, I think the bumper sticker.
Bumper sticker. Easy. Happiness. Money.
Yeah, affluence.
Affluence. Yeah. Needs are met. Yeah. Comfort. Most of you are bringing adjectives that are, or ideas that are similar to mine. I just want to identify that, you know, culturally, it often is a flippant term, and it kind of means affluence, and you kind of made it, you know, you've arrived, and it's all there. And I actually, in my doctoral studies,